この世に並ぶもののない天下無双となっている。面白い。
So I'm just gonna assume that my audience knows about Miyamoto Musashi. You know, Japan's most famous and skilled swordsman. The guy who became known for his stories of his unique double-bladed swordsmanship and his undefeated record of over 60 duels. But he was also a great strategist, a great artist, a writer. His status by now, especially through films and the internet, has just reached mythic proportions. But the story of Miyamoto Musashi is probably one of the greatest stories ever told. And it's because it deals with concepts about changing and improving oneself, and essentially how one can become reborn. But ultimately just being on a quest to be the best version of yourself. And it's not just a story about martial arts or samurai, but it's really a representation of the Japanese spirit itself and its virtues. And for me, it's a story that never gets old no matter how many retellings I see of it. So with that said, it seems Merlin wanted to put that to the test, and he sent me 2 adaptations of Musashi, and they're ones I've never seen. The first one's an older film from the 70s, it's titled Sword of Fury, and I still have yet to watch that one. And the other one was a much newer TV series starring Takuya Kimura. And it also has the same fight team that did the Rurouni Kenshin films. So with all that said, I went with the latter. So this series was given to me by SamuraiDVD.com for purpose of review. And SamuraiDVD.com is the best place to buy samurai films. Mostly that's because a lot of them you won't find overseas. They don't exist. And all the films are translated into English and they're all region free. And actually recently he's been releasing a lot of these films for the first time ever on Blu-ray. And as an added bonus, you could get a discount by using the code BushidoBlues at checkout. And a quick shout out to Sean Wolcott. His sequel to his Lady Swordfighter album has just released and it's now shipping. And in short, it's amazing. And if you haven't seen my review of his first album, his music is inspired by samurai films. And I really recommend the vinyls just because the artwork is so great on them. And for me, it's real easy just to put them on when I'm writing my samurai scripts. So I'll be playing some of his music throughout this review. So if you're interested, I'll provide a link where you can purchase these albums. Anyway, on to the review. So this series is simply titled Miyamoto Musashi and released in 2014. It's directed by Ryosuke Kanafuku and it's 240 minutes in total. So if I do my math correctly, that's exactly 4 hours. So it's actually a little shorter than the 1954 series that starred Toshiro Mifune. And I'll just say that it's definitely better paced than that one. You know, that series was classic, but it is a little slow. And there's just a ton more action in this. After all, they used the Rurouni Kenshin team to do all the action, so they definitely didn't skip out on that. And because of that, the fight choreography is just a lot of fun to watch. And for gamers like myself, there's actually a good amount of video game-like stealth kills. At times I felt like I was watching someone play Ghost of Tsushima. But with all that said, it looks great, but the big problem is that there's no blood.
No sticky, hot, messy, awful blood. No blood at all.
And I feel like if they made it bloody like the Kenshin films, it would be so much better. Maybe because it's for television, they can't do that. But, that's the only bad thing about the fighting. It still looks really good. And overall, just choreographed very well. All the stunt team that's involved. And like I said, even though it's made for television, it doesn't really look cheap at all. In fact, some of the camera angles look really good. And as a video editor, I look for certain scenes that just look iconic, and this film definitely has a bunch of those. So just tons of great shots, but there's also a lot of great shots of Japan's nature. And the scenery is beautiful, stunning at times. And it all just adds to make this adventure just as beautiful as possible. I like my nature in my samurai films. It's really a requirement, and this nails it. So I'm just really glad that we have this on a Blu-ray disc. It needs to be seen in high def. But with that said, my gripe with the DVD is that there's no special features or anything. In fact, as soon as you put the disc in, the movie just starts playing, which is kind of funny. So it's just, straight to the point, which I kind of could respect. But, it is nice to have some kind of special features or a scene selection. But again, you still get the film looking as beautiful as possible. And I thought that the actor Kimura was just a really great choice for Musashi. He's actually been in two of my favorites. He played Manji from Blade of the Immortal, and just the excellent Love and Honor. And just as I was watching the series, I was just debating to myself if he made a good, Miyamoto Musashi. I mean, this is a legendary figure that he's playing. It's not easy. And it is competing with actors like Toshiro Mifune. And actually, Hiroyuki Sanada played him too, in the show Westworld Season 2. Not the best show, but he did a really good job playing that character. And I'll say my main problem with Kimura at first, at least, was that he didn't really have that wildness that Musashi was said to have. He was also said to look more unkempt than how he's portrayed in this. And all of which was just natural to Toshiro Mifune. So Mifune is still just the best version. I don't think anyone will top that. But I will say, by the end of it, I really ended up liking Kimura. He has a really good screen presence. There's a sort of power to him. And you can just see this, especially in the fight scenes when he's just taking on opponents. You actually believe that he'd be skilled enough to beat them. So that's really important. And I do assume that he's doing all the fighting stunts just because it looks really good. And when we see him holding two swords at once, it all just looks like it comes natural to him. And even just the moments where he's just staring into the distance. It's almost like he's pondering life, like the real Musashi would. So in the end, he definitely added to the series. And I gotta say, I really liked Matahachi in this. I remember in the old series, he seemed like he was kind of wasted. I don't even think his character got any resolution in that. They kind of just forgot about him. And there really wasn't much for him to do. But here, every time he was on screen, I just loved every moment of it. And his character actually gets a resolution. And the actor who plays him is just so entertaining. He kind of has a comedy to him just because of how pathetic he is. He's sort of like the George Costanza from Seinfeld. He just does all of it in a very lovable way. And that is kind of different because if you know about Matahachi, his decisions are just very self-serving. he's not a very good person. But here, I feel like because of this actor, I can forgive all that. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I would love to have a Musashi series. That is, as long as this actor plays him. And I tried looking up who the actor was, but he doesn't seem to be credited. There isn't too much information yet about the series. But I believe that the actor who plays him is Kiichi Nakai, one of the main characters in When the Last Sword Was Drawn. I really loved his character in that. But not all of the acting is the best. In fact, when I first put it on, I thought it was going to be a rough watch. But it seems like the acting improved as the story went on. Unfortunately, the portrayal of Otsu in this didn't really do much for me. And it seemed like there was hardly a love story, whereas with the 1954 series, that was a big focus of it. Again, not complaining. And also my favorite, shit-talking monk, Taquan. Unfortunately, he fell kind of short. He definitely needed to be more of a pain in the ass. And so far, the only good depiction of him is from the original novel. He really fell short too in the 1954 series. Also, we have to talk about the actor who plays Kojiro. After all, he's the main antagonist. And it seemed like they really wanted to play him up as the main villain. So for some reason we see him meeting Musashi at the Battle of Sekigahara. That never happened in any other adaptation. And for some reason he had really beautiful hair. It's like, was there a hair salon back then? Because he looks like he just walked out of one.
So hot right now.
But it's not all bad because I will say the actor still has a lot of charisma. He sort of reminded me of a final boss from a video game. He just has that kind of effect. It seems like they were trying to go for a Sephiroth. And I mean, why not? Kojiro in real life was actually said to have a long sword very similar to what Sephiroth had. And the final battle with the two is done and shot really well. I also thought that this series was gonna be only serious in tone, but there's a good amount of humorous moments. And I believe that it, made the pacing a little better. And you don't actually have to be a Musashi fan to enjoy this. But it does help. So I'm gonna recommend this version to the more modern audience. And if you like it, there's also the classic 1954 trilogy. It's definitely a lot slower paced, but very well made. And if you like manga, there's the excellent Vagabonds. It's the most beautiful manga I've ever seen, and just a beautiful story in every way. The only problem, and it's a big one, is that it's on indefinite hiatus, so they never finished the story. So still, the ultimate and undefeated adaptation is still Eiji Yoshikawa's novel. This is if you want the fullness of everything. But I will say it's very long, and I have to respect your time. So if you're interested in watching this, the only place to get it in English and in high def is on SamuraiDVD.com. Don't forget to use the code Bushido Blues at checkout. If you like what I do, subscribe, hit the thumbs up. If you want to support my channel and continue my journey, I have a Patreon. And if you want to discuss, fun movies like this, I have a free Discord. Anyway, thanks for watching.